This is the Unstuck Movement. I am your host, Rob Z. These are true testimonies of breakthrough. Today we have the powerful David George Brooke with us on the podcast. David is that gratitude guy. And when we're talking about gratitude, sir, I love to open up these episodes with a very meaningful, powerful question. Better questions in our life bring better answers, which bring bigger breakthroughs for all of us. We've heard so much about gratitude in our culture and how important it is. But since you are that gratitude guy, I need to know from you why gratitude is so powerful.
Well, thank you, Rob. And first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to get out and spread the word about gratitude and how it impacts our lives. But yes, what a great question. What is it with gratitude? And I think it starts by going back and looking at life itself. And we're all born and we all die. So the end result is not good. Everybody's going to move on. And so it's positive as we live, and then eventually we get sick or we die or whatever happens, and it's negative, and the person passes on and so forth. So life in itself doesn't have the best ending, if you would look at it that way. And so in the meantime, from birth to death is this mindset that we have about how we think. And a good mind without a body isn't any good, isn't any good without a good body, but a good body without a good mind is not good either. And so we get to decide every day. And one of the things I tell people is you and only you choose your attitude. Every single morning when you get up, you can get out of bed on the left side or the right side, whichever way you decide. And it's your choice. And you can decide to have a gratitude attitude and focus on all the blessings and abundance you have, which is why I recommend it so much. And as a result, you'll be happier, healthier, and lighter. It's just a different mindset. And there's people that they say the average human being is programmed to be negative. And partially, I think it's because, as I said earlier, that we end up dying in the end. But it also goes back to when our ancestors and we were evolving as human beings, when we were always in fear. The caveman or whatever it might be was in fear for its life, and the animal, the tiger, whatever it was going to come and get you. So it was always a fear-based type thing, and looking out for what's the worst thing that could happen. And so they want to have preservation and save themselves. And so it may go back as far back then as to the caveman days, but as it evolved forward, being positive is just something that gratitude helps to reinforce every single day, because what it does is it focuses on your blessings and abundance. And one of the favorite sayings I have is gratitude turns what you have into enough. It's so important. But again, I can't say it enough. It's your choice. Nobody can get in there and rewire your brain and change the wires around and make you look at something differently. And I had a mother that was extremely positive. I had a father that was extremely negative. My father is one of those. I'd get up in the morning, I'd say, good morning. And he'd go, what's good about it? And I thought, who thinks that way? As you and I, Rob, both have kids and know what that impact we have as their parents. And then I'd say, well, it's like in Seattle today, it's a beautiful day. The Blue Angels have been practicing. It's a beautiful day. And he'd say, it's going to rain tomorrow. And no matter what it was, he'd always figure out something that was negative. So it is a choice. And so why I'm so fond of gratitude is because it forces you, it helps you, it encourages you to totally look at the glass half full versus half empty. And it's not only the aspect of mental, but it's also physically. Two people enter the hospital with the same disease. They've proven it over and over again. The positive attitude lives, the negative attitude dies. So it can actually affect your overall quality of life. And there's all sorts of science and research and studies that have shown how many ways the gratitude attitude or a positive attitude can help your physical well-being. So it's just a great mindset that I love, and it just is so powerful. And frankly, it's just such a great way to live, because you're seeing the glass half full all the time, which is a lot better way to look at life.
It's just in general, just as a general way of living, looking at the glass half full makes life a lot better. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I have a question around this, actually a statement and a question that I want to make here. But I want to just frame up the podcast. What we're all about is creating breakthrough in your life by stories of incredible breakthroughs. These are amazing stories of perseverance, of strength, of power, of faith. And it's sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. As I said, David George Brooke is known as that gratitude guy, a renowned speaker, coach, and best-selling author with over 25 years in his field and 30 plus years in corporate management. David has become the gratitude expert. And, it's interesting for me. I always find this fascinating. Every morning when you wake up is like a reset, a chance to do things over again, right?
Mhm.
But every morning, whenever I wake up, I find it's like clockwork. I'm gonna be grumpy when I first get up, and I'm not gonna want to do anything. So it's like on repeat. It's a chance to do things over again. It's like, all right, I get up again. Man, I don't feel like getting out of bed. Oh man, I'm tired. I don't even want to think when I first wake up. And this, I've done things that make this better, things that like circumvent it, and it still ends up being the case. So I've taken it as a sign. This is another opportunity to grow, another opportunity to refocus myself and to find gratitude in every single day. And it's almost like it forces me, because I wake up in this state, it forces me to be like, no, I'm not going to be like this, because default, I would just be like that for the rest of the day. And I used to be like that most days, right? So I'm not going to be like this. I'm going to change my mindset and attitude of gratitude, like you said, and choose to step into gratitude. Now, was that what was your waking state on a daily basis? Is this something that you have to do, is choose gratitude, or have you developed a different way?
Yes, definitely. In fact, I even labeled it, Rob. I call it the power hour. And to me, and I think especially, of course, you and I are on a device. I'm on a laptop. We have our cell phones. We have all these electronic devices. So it's partly has to do with, before you even engage those into your day, how you start your day. And at my age, being quite a bit older, I have a couple of friends that are much older, in their late 80s. And they said, well, you think it's tough to get started at your age, try being at our age. And so I developed this thing that really, really helped me. And there's some definite intention to it, called the power hour. And the first thing I do is get out of bed. First thing you do is make your bed. So you got the dopamine hit, something's already been accomplished. Then I go in and I have 4 glasses of water, because you got to hydrate. And so I have 4 quart glasses of water that I will drink on that day. Start with the first one, drink that one, go in, take the shower, shave, get ready, come back in, go into my office where I am now, stretch so that I can put my socks on effectively, because as you get older, you get a little bit more tight. So you got to stretch out. Then go back into the bedroom, meditate for 10 minutes. I have a guided meditation. This is all part of the power hour. Come back into the office, grab that gratitude guy's daily gratitude journal.
Cheap plug.
Shameless plug. And and that's 5 to 6 minutes on everything I'm grateful for. Put that away. Go back in. This all takes about 45 minutes to an hour. Get my latte I make with my little latte machine. Come in here, open the laptop, turn on the phone, and start my day. But all those things have been programmed to kind of set myself up for success. And I think where a lot of people have gotten into trouble is the first thing they do is they look at their phone, they look at their laptop, and all of this comes in front of everything else. And it's just unbelievable how much the electronic devices have taken over for, these other things that should happen. But there's something about putting all those pieces in place that is so nice, because now you're ready to go and you're set for your day, and you've got yourself set mentally. And whether it's the stretching, or it's the meditation, or it's the gratitude journal, even the drinking the hot water, being hydrated, it all sets you up. So I really like that, because I will tell you, as young as you are, Rob, as you get older into my age range, it's even more important to have that kind of a setup in the morning, because it programs you. And you're right. There's some days we wake up and we just don't feel it. But if you can power your way through it, or I always reward myself with a nice latte. I have a fancy latte machine that makes a nice coffee, and so forth. So, but really important to start your day that way. And then it'll get your head clear and kind of ready for the day.
Yeah, I do a lot of those things that you mentioned. Jumping in a cold shower always just kicks me in gear. I do a lot of push-ups in the morning, so I'll wake up and just start doing push-ups. I try to get 40 in the first like 5 to 10 minutes I'm awake. That just gets me awake. And yeah, so prayer, meditation, I water, also 2 large glasses of water. Then I get a coffee. So some of the same stuff that you're saying, man. What do you say to somebody who doesn't have time to do it? Maybe they're watching this and they're like, I don't have an hour each morning. My life's chaos. What do you recommend they do?
Well, I always, I won't say I take offense to that, but I call people out, because we all make time for things that are important. It isn't that they don't have time for it. It's just they haven't assigned enough importance to it. And so to me, it kind of reminds me of like the dentist that used to say, just floss the ones you want to keep. It's like, it's like, how do you want to take care of your body? You want to keep pushing your body? I won't get too personal, but I could give you 3 or 4 names of people that were in my life at certain portions of my life that pushed themselves so hard that in their 40s and 50s, they're all dead now. They all died of heart attacks. And they maybe they never took the time to, I mean, like, I love the dopamine hit of the bed mate. Somebody says, why do you make your bed? It's going to be messed up again tonight. I don't care. It's all perfect. Now all the pillows where they should be, at 6 or at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock tonight when I turned down the bed. That doesn't matter. It was something that was accomplished. So I always get a kick out of people that say, I don't have time for it. And one of the things that I say, time the gratitude journal, it's 5 to 6 minutes to write in a gratitude journal, for instance. And I said, well, do you have an extra 5 or 6 minutes? And so then people will say, well, I don't even have that. I'm just too busy, which again, I think is kind of baloney. But even if they say that, they'll say, well, then do me a favor. Do you have time to write one sentence? Yeah. Then write one sentence for 7 days in a row of what you're grateful for, and put it all in one sentence. And then tell me how you feel after 7 days. And of course, 9 times out of 10, if not 10, they say, I felt a lot better. Well, imagine what a full 5 minutes will make for you. And one of the things is that in this particular gratitude journal with its template and so forth, there's a thing that says the highlight of your day. And so I was right in the morning. So in the morning, the highlight of my day is what happened yesterday. So tomorrow morning, one of the highlights of my day will be being on the Unstuck Movement, because it'll be the highlight of my Thursday and so on. And so it's just, and that's why the structure to it, the template piece of it, where you kind of fill in the blanks, if you will, is so helpful. But, and I think you brought up something earlier, which I think is really important, is that it's easy to be happy and carefree and all those kinds of things when everything's going good. The challenge is when it's not going good and you don't feel like doing those push-ups in the morning and you don't feel like getting out of bed and all those things, and how you can channel that positive energy into that to just go, one of the things I've done, I've been very similar. I don't do the push-ups in the morning, but I do the stretching and the meditation. And you mentioned the prayer, which is another good thing. But so one of the things I'll try to convince myself, just think how you're going to feel in 10 minutes. And sure enough, in 10 minutes, I feel a lot better. And so we just push through those and things. So I think a lot of us, I think it's helpful to figure out little tricks and tips, if you will, of how to make ourselves do something we don't necessarily want to do, because we know when we come out on the other side, you're going to feel better.
How are you different now than the version of you, say, 30 years ago? Who were you 30 years ago, and how have you evolved into the gratitude guy?
Well, great question. And I would say the single biggest thing is how much I don't take anything for granted. And part of that is I think about, for instance, when I tell people writing in the gratitude journal as an example, I try not to tell them what I write, because I want it to be their own thoughts and how they come about. But number one, every single day is my health, because without your health, and I've got kids as you have kids, I wouldn't even be here. And so if you don't have your health, and if you don't have health and you're still here, it's not a very good situation. And then next is my 2 sons. I call them my rock star sons. And then my family and friends, and my practice, my business, my talks, my seminars. I'm doing workshops for Boeing lately, which is really, really fun, because Boeing's going through a lot of tough times. And so I've gotten some good impact there. And so I think the biggest thing is just from 30 years ago is just really having such a higher level of appreciation. And of course, I'd say gratitude, but appreciation or thankfulness for what I have. And it's amazing, because I was telling this friend the other day, we live in a world where everybody compares everything to everybody else. And I'm from Seattle. So how rich is Bill Gates? How rich is Jeff Bezos? I think Bezos moved to Florida, but all these and Facebook and Google and all these things, and these billionaires, trillionaires and things. And I just think, I'm healthy. I've got my sons. I've got a roof over my head. I got food in the refrigerator. I'm making a difference in people's lives. That's not stuff I thought about 30 years ago. When I was in my 30s and 40s, I was learning how to fly and own my own airplane. And I mentioned you earlier, I was racing the hydroplane and doing all these crazy things. I had all sorts of fancy toys, so to speak. And none of that is just very meaningful anymore. It's, to me, what's meaningful is, as you said, somebody coming up to you in Lowe's and recognizing you and telling you that you made a difference. It's thrilling when people write me these notes and you changed my life. And so I never felt that 30 years ago. So just the appreciation for that has been the biggest difference.
Yeah, when it comes to the comparison stuff too, it's like we end up sending ourselves down paths in life because we're pursuing something that somebody else had success in, and we feel like, oh, I didn't have success in that either. I need to have that thing because they have it. And it's crazy to think like, well, that might not even be something that I have any interest in even having success in, but because this person had it and I can't let go of the fact that they had it and I don't, now I'm chasing after This is what the internet has done, I think, to a lot of people. This is what social media has done. And obviously television, all that did it for many, many years before that. But I love thinking about like your 5-foot world. And in my 5-foot world, like what's going right in my life, like anything that I can actually physically touch or like interact with, things are really good. Now, we can't say that for everybody. Not everybody's 5-foot world is great. But if I look at my 5-foot world on a daily basis, so blessed. And like you said, just being, I don't know how anything in my body even works. I don't even know what's causing any of this to work. Like the functions that have to happen, the things that have to fire for my heart to beat. Like it's just amazing that it works. It's incredible. And so if we miss the gratitude for that, we miss out on just an immediate blessing, just immediate, like every single second of every single day. Holy cow. This is incredible that I'm even alive and this is happening right now. What were some things that happened in your life that flipped that switch? Oh no, I need to pay attention. Oh no, I need to be more grateful, because we always have moments that rock us and shake us. And that's where these breakthroughs come from.
Sure. Well, at least there's 2 or 3 that come to mind immediately. And the first was my mother's death when I was in my 20s, and very, very close to her. And I mentioned my dad was very negative. My mom, and they've been divorced. My mom was very positive. So when she passed away, she was, if not my closest friend, one of my 2 or 3 closest friends. And so it was very tough because I was like 27, 28, something like that. And that's where I realized how much I'd leaned on her. And then next, a few years later, my parents had been divorced. My father took his own life. And that's even more tough to deal with, because you get a phone call. And by the way, I was married to Dana, and Dana says, your sister's on the phone. And she says, Dad killed himself. And so that was kind of the next thing, that because even though I wasn't as close to him, the suddenness of that, and we had no idea that he was dealing with those kinds of issues, is all of a sudden have now both my parents gone. And then it was just about, I don't know, 10 or 15 years later, I got married and had my sons, and my wife died. And so she was 38 when she passed away. And it was, Connor and Kyle were 4 and 14. And so it really, especially when Dana, my wife, passed away, that's when I really started to plug in a lot of the gratitude type things. Because people would ask me in seminars, I always I shouldn't say got a kick out of it, but I was always sort of not even amused, but just thought it was interesting that people would ask a Q&A session. Well, my best friend just died. What do I have to be grateful for? And kind of like challenging me on this, like, okay, Mr. Gratitude guy, what am I supposed to do now? And I said, well, first of all, losing a friend is terrible. I lost my wife. I lost my mom and dad. It was terrible. You're never going to replace them. You deal with it as best you can. People generally know that the best way to deal with loss is just time. There's no speedy Cliff Notes version of how you get over something like that. So, but the gratitude thing really helped me. And then even looking back on Dana, she gave me my 2 sons, and she was a phenomenal mother, and they both turned out just to be spectacular. I call them my rock star sons. They're now 30 and 40. And so, but gratitude helped me so much through that to focus on, again, all that I had to be grateful for. And, it's just interesting because recently I had another example why I think gratitude is so important is I had a flood. I had a fire sprinkler break in my condo, and it flooded half my condo. And so they came in and ripped it all up and everything. So I'm sitting in my office right now, and I look out on Lake Washington, as I mentioned earlier. And so the living room and fireplace and big screen and dining room are all kind of covered in plastic, and they're going to fix it eventually at some point. But people keep saying to me, well, how come you're not more upset about this? And I, what? Look, let's say they'll put me up in a motel. I have my office here. I've got my screens. I got my printers. I've got all the laptops. I've got all my files. I got everything in there where I run that gratitude guy. And at least this room didn't get hurt. So I have my office. I have my bathroom. I have my bedroom, and have my kitchen. So I don't have the living room, dining room, and the deck and all that kind of stuff. They'll fix it. I just can't believe you're handling this so well. I said, no, because what would I do if I wasn't in here? I'd be talking to Rob from a motel somewhere where you got 12 inches square for your little desk to be, yes, I'm doing this here in the Motel 6 or wherever it would be. So anyway, I think having that mindset, the biggest thing, I called it an attitude of gratitude and a gratitude mindset. It constantly reinforces you focusing on the glass half full and what you have. So even going through all those things with my mom and dad and with Dana, I've had other friends pass away. just to constantly remember that every day is a new day. And if you can continue to see that glass half full, it just makes your experience that much better. And I even think about some of these people that have passed away. And when I keep coming back to the gratitude journal, when I write in on the right-hand side, which is the gratitude intentions, and I sometimes write about, that's what you're going to be grateful for that hasn't even happened yet. How grateful I am to still be on this planet when so many of my friends,
those Jets.
Blue Jeans Blue Angels are over top.
I heard that one. Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear those. They got everything closed up too. But I hear, I just noticed that it makes such a big difference when I just constantly focus on all the good that I have. In this flood in this condo is kind of a good example because, yeah, it's been kind of a hassle, but who cares? I mean, it's going to get fixed. And I've got my office and I've got a beautiful view of the lake and so on and so forth. So, but it's a choice. And I think that's something that I tell people, I want to come back to what you said earlier about I don't have time for a power hour. I don't have time for gratitude. That is so much baloney. Everybody makes time for the things that are important to people. And it's like off a quick sidebar, I think about all this ghosting and people that don't get back to you. And you and I just talked about a gentleman that's going to get back to me or whatever. It's just people are busy and all that kind of stuff. I understand it. But I always say the same thing. If I called them and I say, hey, Rob, it's Dave Brook. I've got that $5,000 check. I was going to drop it off today. Would 2 o'clock be better or would 3 o'clock be better? Which is better for you? 99, if not 100 out of 100 people would say, yeah, 2 o'clock. I'll be here waiting for you. Thanks. Or what? I should make the check bigger so it even sounds more powerful. But we all do what we want to do. So, it's just, I offer people so much this with the gratitude journal and the attitude, the power hour, all that kind of thing is just, these are ways to cope. And we need healthy coping mechanisms because we live in a world of so many destructive and deadly coping mechanisms. My wife, Dana, died of a prescription pill overdose with Vicodin and Oxycontin, and she was 38. Wow. And she had gotten hooked on the actual medication and not the fact that her back hurt and so forth. And it devastated us. And still to this day, it's 25 or so years ago now, it's still sad. But the thing is that people are just trying to cope. And so you have a gratitude journal and a gratitude practice. It's just a great coping mechanism because that's what people need. Because this roller coaster of life is just crazy. And it's just all this up and down. And everybody loves you when you're uptown. On the upside, nobody returns your calls or on the downside, but that's also when you learn the most lessons. And then when you get back up again, you want to stay there, but you never stay there. It goes like this. It's just part of the deal. So I just offer just a great attitude.
Yeah. Embracing the ups and the downs. Obviously we're going to embrace the ups, but when you're down, embracing that, knowing that is when the biggest breakthroughs happen. That's when those dark nights of the soul in the valley, in the wilderness, that's where you learn the most. That's where you grow the most. It can be hard, really hard as you're going through it to keep that perspective. And you're not probably always going to hold on to that perspective. But as long as you have good people around you and you have that mindset and you keep a tight knit of people who are positive and they do want the best for you, you're going to come through that and you're going to find the silver lining. So we have to jump into a quick 60-second sponsorship shout out. When we come back, though, I want to talk about what you just mentioned a second ago, that when you lost your wife, you're still sad about that, yet you find gratitude in it. And oftentimes when somebody has such a traumatic thing happen to them, they never get past it and they always carry it with them everywhere they go for the rest of their life.
Right.
And they never find gratitude outside of that. I just want to talk about how people can still find the gratitude in something that they still feel sad about. Let's touch on that in 60 seconds.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JASCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
So, David, I think this is really powerful because when something traumatic happens to us, I know people who are sad every day because of something that happened 20 years ago.
True.
Right. And that doesn't say you don't have to still be sad about it or mourn that thing, but you have to move on and find gratitude. How have you found a way to do that through the things you've gone through?
Well, I think once again, it sounds like gratitude is kind of the panacea to all this, but it really is in so many ways, because I think if I use Dana's death as a way that, and let's face it, in the beginning, time is the great healer, as we know. But, if you break your leg or whatever it might be, you're going to get a cast on your leg. And so then pretty soon the cast is on for a while, and then they take the cast on, and then you can kind of walk for a little bit. And then maybe at some point you can jog, and then at some point you can run again. So, but from the breaking of the leg to running again, there's a bunch of these steps you go through. So it's no different. You don't just get up the next day and start running again with a broken leg. So it's very similar in the way that it goes through the steps. And I remember in the beginning, I try not to get choked up when I say this, but I remember when Dana had passed away, it was a Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, on Thursday, and on Friday, the next 3 days, Connor and Kyle, Connor was 4, Kyle was 14, especially Connor kept going, "Where's mommy?" And I remember realizing the only relief I could get was sleep. And then I would finally get myself to sleep, and I'd wake up and think I just had this terrible dream. And, but I just couldn't stop crying for 3 or 4 days. I just cried all the time. It was just, I can't believe what's happened to my wife and what's happened to my 2 sons don't have a mom now, and so forth. And so, but the amazing thing about it, back to this time is the healer, and this is where gratitude helps you focus on what you have as the glass half full, is over time, at some point, you get some time under your belt and you don't cry as much. And then I got to sort of become more aware of what's happening, and then making sure I appreciated all the good things, because even when bad stuff happens, there's still good things about it too, because I still have my 2 sons. You and I talked briefly when you and I met about what it's like to be a father. It's the greatest single thing I've ever done. And even, in fact, knowing what I know now, sometimes I wish I would even had more kids, because I just love being a dad. And all this hydroplane and airplanes and crazy stuff is fine, but nothing compares to being a dad and watching your children grow up and become these functioning little human beings and so forth. And so, but over time, it was always the gratitude in the gratitude journal. And as I said too, I don't know if I'd say people might laugh when I say this, but it's just like, when you really break it down, the fact that you have a roof over your head, you have a hot shower, you have a warm bed, you have food in the refrigerator, you have a job, you have money in the bank or whatever it might be, you start breaking it down to the basics, and you realize how much of your life, if you put it from that perspective, is actually in pretty good shape, and that you're going to have to deal with it, in this case, a loss. And as somebody once said to me, and I forget how they said it, but it was like, we're all going to come and go. And the only thing that we don't know is we all know the birth date of everybody, but we don't know the death date. And as somebody once said, the dash on the tombstone is your life between those 2 dates. But it's interesting that we don't know when that's going to be, but it's going to happen. And I'm mindful of a time I went to a counselor. I went to support groups, which were really, really helpful. So again, back to like the power hour, you talked about some other things plus prayer and things. It's a combination of a bunch of things you have to do, not have to, but it's helpful if you do together. And I remember going to this support group with all these people in the circle, and it was really, really tough for me to talk about it. My name's David Brooke. My wife, Nana, died September 29th, 1998. And you watch everybody going like this. So how all this validation from these total strangers who kind of became friends. But what really struck me is I went to this one counselor that ran that group by myself, just one-on-one. And she goes, "How was your week?" So I tell her, and it was terrible. Connor's crying all the time. He doesn't know what happened. I just went through the list. And when I'm done saying all the things about my week, she just looks at me and she goes, "I'm sure that's very difficult." And I went, "Are you going to say something else?" Or she goes, "No, it's difficult." And it just so simplistic, but it really hit me. Life is freaking difficult. I think it was The Road Less Traveled or whatever. I think it starts out, life is difficult. And it's just one of those things where how you manage it. And one of the reasons why that I think about, again, I keep coming back to the gratitude attitude and the gratitude journal and so forth. The analogy I've always used, if I come up to Rob Wentz and I punch him in the stomach and you're not looking, I can knock all the wind out of you. But if I tell you, now I'm going to punch you in the stomach, now be ready, you can tighten your stomach muscles and I can punch you and it won't bother you. because you're ready for it, and it just kind of just, and it doesn't affect you. But that's what the gratitude journal, and that's what that attitude does, is it allows you to tighten your stomach muscles and get ready to take a punch and know that if you're ready for it, it's not going to knock the wind out of you.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at that. It's interesting how, nobody, if you say like most people, they don't like change, or they don't like a bad surprise, right? A good surprise we love. Life is full of surprises. Life is an adventure, and the only guarantee in life is everything's going to change. So how do we condition ourselves? How do we build those emotional and intellectual muscles so we're prepared when something bad does happen? And like you said, it's focusing on the gratitude and things. And another thing too, David, that I've noticed, I went through a really tough period over the past couple of years of my life through a divorce, and remarried now, and it's beautiful right now because I can, when you're in something, it's like it's never going to end. And it's like, dear Lord, is this ever going to stop? Is this pain ever going to stop? Is the torment ever going to stop? And then you get through it. As most people, right? Some people don't get through it, right? And that's the thing that I remind myself of. If something's hard right now, it's not always going to be hard. And you're going to be able to look back at that thing and be like, wow, that seemed like a lifetime ago. That seemed like a whole different person went through that, because I can't even, you put yourself back in a situation that you were in 5 years ago. And man, it's amazing how our body, how our mind is able to compartmentalize things, get through things, and then look back at them with this 20/20 hindsight. And then you can see things so much more clear from that place. And once you detach yourself from it so much, it's really freeing, and it's very healing. And then I always love just the idea of making your mess your message. And I believe that's what you're doing here, right? You had messes that happened. Yeah. And we have to get through the mess if we're going to use it as a message. Yeah. And I believe personally that God doesn't put us through messes, but he's always going to turn it for good. So if we push through it and we get through it, it's going to be used for good in our life, and we can help other people with it by making it a message that helps others. And it's amazing that, I shouldn't say amazing. It's sad when somebody loses sight of that within the thing, and they let that thing consume them and just ruin their life. Well, and because it doesn't have to, it doesn't need to.
Yes. And sorry. And I think there's little sayings that kind of respond to that too. This too shall pass. I've always thought is one, which is from the Bible. And another one that's a little comical, but it's really true. When you're going through hell, keep going, and those are things too. And I use another analogy for that too, that in 1981, it was, I think I've run one and only one marathon. And try running a marathon. It took me 5 hours to run 26.2 miles. And you have a lot of time to think about how easy it would be to quit. This is too hard. But then when you're done, you think, see, I got through that. So I think one of the best antidotes to that is to look back on the things that you accomplished. Like you said, a few years ago, you were in a very dark place. Well, look where you are now. And so using that as a way to project it forward. Well, if I got through X, Y, Z, I can get through A, B, C. And it's really powerful that way, because it really reminds you that you got through that and you can get through anything else as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Another thing I really admire you for, and I was saying I need to connect you to my mentor, Ray, because Ray's in his mid-80s and he just keeps going, right? Yeah. I'm not quite sure what age you are, but you just keep going, lifelong learning. Like you just keep that mindset. And I imagine that gratitude has something to do with that. But I want to ask you about that, because I want to make sure I keep that as I continue on in life, that I don't lose sight of like, okay, just because I'm supposedly at the time of retirement, that doesn't mean it's time to retire. Just keep moving forward. So what do you think has given you that mindset of like reinventing yourself, creating something new, and really reinventing yourself? Because it seems like that's what you've done for you.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I'm 74. And so I started 10 years ago when I was 64.
I would never guess you were 74.
Oh, thank you. The check's in the mail. It was like 63 or 64 when I left Lowe's. Speaking of Lowe's, I was managing the Lowe's home improvement store. I didn't know that guy that came up to you the other day, but anyway, I'd always wanted to be a speaker, and so I realized that I need to quit putting this off. I wanted to be a speaker when I was 19 years old, which is 1969. And I gave a talk at a high school, and I just went to my car and I thought, that's what I want to be, a motivational speaker. And so it took 45, 50 years, whatever it was, to finally get the guts to quit working at Lowe's, to become the speaker and so forth. And so, but to your point, there's sort of a 4-part thing that I tell people that I think is really important. So whether it's David Brook or Rob Wentz or Ray or whoever it might be, but number one, I just think it's 4 parts to this thing. Number one, I think it's so important to have a great relationship with yourself. How do you find you? How do you find the person in the mirror? Do you like the person in the mirror? And whatever that, and just whatever it is, keep that relationship. Again, the gratitude journal helps that to really be reinforced by, look at, I'm doing good in the world or whatever. So that's number one. Number two is find your talent. Figure out what you're talented. You talked about being in radio, which I think I would have liked to have done that sometime, because I think that would have been really cool. Of course, a lot of it's changed now in the days of radio and podcasts and everything on the internet and stuff. But I'd say find yourself, find your talent, number two. And so on your talent, make your strengths productive, make your weaknesses irrelevant. So don't fiddle around with trying to do things that aren't your strength. And if you're 125 pounds and you want to play football, it's probably not going to happen to be a quarterback, but maybe you can be a jockey at a racetrack or something, because they're like use it that way that much, and so forth. So figure out what the talent is. And I always say, I can talk to 10,000 soldiers at our local Army base, but I can't draw a circle to save my life. So I'm not going to take an art class. It just doesn't make sense to me. And so then next is find your passion. And that's where, what do you mean find your passion? What did you want to be when you grew up? What would you do if every day you went to your checking account on your computer and there's another $1 million in every day? What was something you do for free? What was the thing that you did that when you worked from 8 to 5 every day, when 5 o'clock got there, it felt like 10 minutes had gone by? Something like that, where you're really passionate about that. Mm-hmm. And then finally, if you get a great relationship with yourself, you figure out what your talent is, you figure out what your passion is, you'll find your purpose. And they've proven that people that have a purpose live 7 to 10 years longer than people that don't. And that's why I respect these people that have retired. But what's happened is that they're working at Walmart, being a greeter or whatever. But there's all these people that Joe Paterno got kind of in some trouble at Penn State, and he gets fired. And 6 months later, he's dead. Andy Rooney quits at 60 Minutes and did all his cool commentaries and so forth. And he retires, and like a year later, he was dead. And Bear Bryant was like the most successful football coach at Alabama, and he retires after this hugely successful career. And about 6 months later, he's dead. And what did they all have in common? Their passion was gone. And so that's the thing that I encourage you and anybody is keep figuring out what that passion is. Keep the relationship with yourself. Figure out what the talent is. You've obviously got the radio talent, other things that you and I talked when you met. Figure out what you're going to be really passionate about, really enjoy doing. So, if you do this, you enjoy it. You never work another day the rest of your life, as they all say. And then you'll probably get your passion. And honestly, Rob, my biggest passion, there's a notebook right over there that says heartwarming emails and notes. And it's a 3-ring binder, and it's just stuffed with emails, cards, notes, letters, all these things. You changed my life. And it's never been the same since we got the gratitude journal or this or that. And so I pull it out maybe every other week or so and just start thumbing through. And I just go, gosh, look at the impact they've had on these people. And so once you've done that, you want to keep doing it forever. And the only other thing I would add, which I'll pat myself a little bit on the back, is that it does take guts. And, I forget the lady's name that did the 5 Regrets of the Dying. She had all these people that she interviewed in their 90s. And some said that, I wish I'd lived a life truer to myself than what my parents wanted for me or what others wanted for me. But one of the ones I love of the 5 was, I wish I'd taken more chances. Mm-hmm. And, I walked away from a lot of money at Lowe's, and a big salary and bonus and corporate jets and all that kind of stuff. And boy, there were days where I really questioned what I had done. But every time I get that card or that note, it makes up for it. So don't wait too long to take your chances and go out and do things you always wanted to do. And you'll never look back, and you'll never regret it, because especially when you're impacting lives.
I love that. So good, David. It's so true. As you continue to also, and then when you find the courage and you decide to start going after the thing that you really love, you're supposed to be doing, it's going to evolve, and you've got to allow it to evolve, right? So the courage to get into it, but also the courage to let it evolve into what it's supposed to be, what it's supposed to become, because you can only see so far as you can see. You can't see past that. So I think that's so important, just to let it do what it does. You're kind of steering the ship, but also things are going to happen. Things are going to pop up. opportunities are going to come up, opportunities are going to go away also, and you got to just like go with the flow of those to let it, let whatever your purpose or passion is, let it emerge. And that's going to happen over time, but you've got to give it the space to do that. I've loved this conversation. I love that you said, make your strengths productive, make your weaknesses irrelevant. That is so good. Focus on those strengths. And if you don't know what those strengths are, you might want to do some time. I want to spend some time focusing on those strengths, journaling about those things. What are the things I'm grateful about that I'm good at? And ask people what you're good at. Find out, what am I really good at? What are my strengths? Because you're going to need those to steer yourself in the right direction. So people want to check out the website, they can go to thatgratitudeguy.com. You have a Gratitude Infusion Mastermind registration, which I'm going to be a part of coming up. I cannot wait to be in that group. I'm going to drop that in the link below, in the comments below, so people can check that out if they want to be a part of that. And if they want to get your journal, they can go to thatgratitudeguy.com and get it right there, right?
Right, correct. Right on the homepage, there's a little button right in the center that says purchase your copy of That Gratitude Guy's Daily Gratitude Journal. It's right in the front.
Amazing. Anything you want to leave the audience with before we sign off?
I would just add this, because people, talk to me about, this gratitude thing. And you said this, I really glommed onto this earlier about, what about people just don't have time? I just don't have time. And we make time for things that are important to us. And we'd be there for that $5,000 check and so forth. But the thing that I always want to leave with people is that if you can't write in a gratitude journal, or it's just too much, or you want to try it, you can't afford that much. These are $20 or whatever, for whatever reason you can't do it. Just try writing a sentence every day for a week and tell me what happens on the 8th day, how you feel. Just one sentence. And you'll see that it makes such a big difference, because, as they always say, it's better to do less than we hope for than nothing at all. And so just even to do a sentence is really, really powerful. And just whatever, you put a few things in there you're grateful for. So try that. And if that works, then consider getting the gratitude journal, because then you can expand on it and it'll make you just that much more grateful.
Amazing. Wonderful conversation. Thank you for doing what you do, David George Brooke. This has been the Unstuck Movement.